Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining Next Step this afternoon for another roundtable discussion centered around the manufactured housing space. My name is Grant Beck. I'm going to be providing the technical resources for today's webinar. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. So everybody, all the attendees are on mute and will remain on mute for the duration of the webinar. We will have a curated Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So we ask that if throughout the webinar you have questions that you'd like to ask generally or of individual panelists, to please go ahead and put those into the Q&A function on the Zoom webinar. This webinar is also being recorded and will be made available on Next Step's YouTube channel in the coming days. So with that, I will pass it along to Stacy Epperson. Stacy?
Thank you, Grant. So hello and welcome everyone to the Next Step Energy Efficiency Roundtable discussion. Thank you to the attendees and our panelists who are interested in why energy efficiency in the home building sector is gaining urgency. And it's gaining support to begin shifting toward a zero energy future. So today we'll learn from industry leaders about new opportunities and programs to help us with this shift and our efforts to reach that future goal. So at Next Step, our mission is sustainable homeownership. Now for us, that means more than providing a greener housing solution. It's really centered on wealth creation and long-term affordability. We believe sustainable homeownership is affordable for new homebuyers buying their first home initially and the ongoing cost of homeownership. So energy costs are important to control now and in the future. We are intentional about our dedication to homes being built in factories because we believe it is the most efficient way to do it, and it's a greener building process. And it really helps with the future and protection of our planet. So Next Step has been a consistent proponent of homes built to the Energy Star standards. And we're committed to homes that exceed those standards. And we partner with others to explore new efficiency innovations, solar technology, and other ways to advance the manufactured housing sector. So we're also committed to a policy platform that increases energy efficiency for all manufactured homeowners while we continue to reach for a zero energy future. So why now? Well, I think we all know, as the impacts of climate change become more evident, and we understand that the earth is getting warmer, and we cannot continue to afford the increasing costs of disaster recovery from the intensity of the catastrophic weather events we've all been experiencing. All of us have a moral duty to protect people and planet. So the call to action is more urgent, and every sector is finding solutions. And the housing sector is playing its role as we address the nation's affordable housing crisis of providing 4 million new homes, which are needed for home builders today. We have to balance what's needed for the future. So today, we're very lucky to have an esteemed panel of experts who are really at the top of their field to talk about the new and exciting opportunities, the latest trends, and why we should all be inspired to make commitments to increase our energy efficiency and carbon reduction goals. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today. The first is Ellie White. She is a senior associate within RMI's Carbon-Free Buildings program, leveraging a background in environmental design, resilience, and health and social equity to contribute to thought leadership and research promoting policies and best practices, which reinforce the business case for sustainability in the built environment. Since joining RMI, Ellie's been, her primary focus has been supporting the Finance the Future initiative, working to increase the availability of capital for home energy improvements across the single family market, while promoting the transparency of home energy performance disclosures in the home purchasing process. Also joining us today is William Jenkins. He is Clayton's Director of Environment and Sustainability. He is focused on creating a better future through responsible building practices. He has a background in earth science and environmental consulting. His experience as a scientist has fostered his passion for sustainability and continues to drive his efforts in implementing sustainability. Clayton is a national builder of attainable housing, including manufactured housing. Also joining us today is Clemente Mojica. Clemente is president and CEO for the Neighborhood Partnership Housing Services, a community development financial institution located in Rancho Cucamonga, California. Clemente guides his organization's work in affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization, community wealth building, and job creation and preservation, and environmental sustainability. Also joining us today is Jamal Lewis. Jamal is the Director of Policy Partnerships and Equitable Electrification for Rewiring America. Previously, he led the energy and climate initiatives at Green and Healthy Homes, and has worked with states and localities across the country to advance electrification, healthy housing, and energy efficiency programs. So let's get started. And my first question today is going to be for Ellie White. So Ellie, I want to start with you and help set the table for the discussion we're having today. While we're going to have a focus on efficiency of manufactured homes today, can you speak more broadly as to why it's so important for the building and construction industries to move the needle on energy efficiency?
Absolutely. And thank you, Stacy, Grant, the entire Next Step team for hosting this webinar. And I just want to say thank you to everyone in the audience for making time to join this discussion today. I really think when we're thinking about why it's so important for the building and construction industries to ultimately move the needle on energy efficiency, it's really important to look at the broader building stock throughout the United States and to really recognize the impact that has on climate change, both nationally and globally. Today we know that US buildings use roughly 40% of all total energy consumption, and more specifically also produce 40% of all carbon emissions across the US. And when we're thinking about the US building stock as a whole, housing really makes up a significant portion of that. And we can't ignore the housing stock if we're really realistically going to meet our carbon emission reduction goals by 50% by 2030 and to net zero by 2050. And so really the construction and building industries will have to play an active role in helping to drive this action and success to really meet these climate goals. I think second, it's also important to recognize this affordability aspect to energy efficiency and decarbonization. We know that the manufactured housing, it makes up roughly 10% of all US housing. And we also know that oftentimes the individuals that inhabit those homes or own those homes are oftentimes lower income individuals. And we've seen from data trends, specifically, I'm going to reference one that Fannie Mae put out, really focusing on the fact that, the median annual income for individuals living in manufactured homes, it's roughly $35,000, which is half of what the annual income of a site build home is. So there's very significant financial impacts here as well. And so when we're thinking about this long-term affordability, ultimately energy efficiency can really aid in decreasing utility bills on a monthly basis and also can lower the default rates on home mortgages across the market. And I think too, and I'm happy to include this report that RMI had put out a few years ago, either in follow-up materials or also in the chat. But I think there's this oftentimes a misconception that higher performing homes cost more to build and to maintain. And that's simply not the truth. I will say we have done research at RMI in various cities, including Austin, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, Denver, Minneapolis, even New York City. And we can see that new all-electric homes oftentimes are less expensive than new mixed-use fuel homes across the market. So that's something that's really important to emphasize. And I think finally, it's really key to recognize the health benefits that come along with electrifying and decarbonizing and making homes more energy efficient. This can really produce significant indoor air quality and environmental impacts, and can ultimately reduce, health impacts across the market and financial burdens that might arise with those health impacts. And so I think it's really important to recognize that today over 26 million low-income households burn fossil fuels, and that has really, really significant impacts on your health, your well-being, your finances. And I would be remiss to say if, when we're looking at the statistics, communities of color are disproportionately overburdened and underserved. And so we really need to ensure that we are prioritizing these communities and really emphasizing not only the health, the cost savings, the environmental and benefits across the board. And then finally, I'll just kind of wrap this up by saying, the building and construction industry, again, they really hold the keys to driving forward the success. And I think when we're thinking about the construction and building industry, they play a large role into our entire economic ecosystem and really have the potential to drive forward change across the market. So I'll stop there, and I certainly can add on to that.
Well, thank you, Ellie. I think that was very enlightening for all of us. And so the construction and home building industry has a major role to play in this, right? So I'm going to move to William next. And so William, let's talk a little bit more about manufactured housing. So you work for the largest manufacturer in the field. And so how does Clayton view their role in increasing the energy efficiency of manufactured homes? And you can speak to modular too. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you, Grant, as well, and my fellow panelists on behalf of Clayton. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this discussion. It's undoubtedly a very important one. So really, we view our role, with this question, it really comes down to affordability and making an impact, right? Innovations in energy efficiency ultimately enable our homeowners to reduce their consumption of energy and natural resources, which undeniably improves environmental impact there, but it also reduces their utility bills, which ties back to that affordability that we just speak about. So that in turn translates to less greenhouse gas emissions and a reduced strain on the respective power grid. Now, as a home builder, we really recognize our responsibility to carefully manage and minimize our environmental impact. And that goes beyond just the way that we operate, but it extends to the homes that we sell as well. And that's why energy efficiency has been and continues to be such an integral part of our business. It not only supports our long-term affordability for our homeowner, but it also plays an increasingly important role in our sustainability efforts. Right now, we're taking strides to really centralize our sustainability practices, and we're honing in on 3 focus areas. We're reducing waste, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and we're expanding energy efficiency offerings. So while those 3 areas of opportunity really support sustainability, they also promote affordability throughout the homeowner's experience, upfront on the initial cost of the home, but also that long-term affordability in terms of energy consumption.
Well, thank you, William, and it's glad to see the company committing to this. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question, if you don't mind. I'd like for you to talk to us about what are some of the specific breakthroughs that Clayton has implemented in the last few years? Are there technologies? Are there trends? Are there new methods? Tell us more. What are you doing?
Well, there are, and a lot of them actually come standard in every home that we build. So we're committed to incorporating energy saving technology or features across all of our homes. So for example, we install ecobee smart thermostats, smart comfort units from Carrier designed for our industry, LuxOE windows, Frigidaire appliances, and Ream water heater. Those are coming standard in every single offsite built home that we build. Now, if we step out and look at the bigger picture, right? Last year, we built and installed nearly 20,000 Energy Star certified homes offsite, and that contributed to about 34 of our home building facilities winning the Energy Star Residential New Construction Market Leader Award.
Okay.
We're fortunate to have that the 2nd year in a row. So while we don't have the final numbers, it does look like we're on track to exceed that this year. But what does that mean? Well, according to Energy Star, just the 20,000 homes from last year, those efficiency gains contribute to more than $5.3 million in estimated annual utility bill savings. So again, tying that back to the long-term affordability of home ownership. Now we offer, some other packages, right? You can upgrade insulation, LED lights, et cetera, at your will. But all that to say, around 70% of the manufactured homes that we build qualify for 45L energy efficiency credits.
Well, congratulations to Clayton on that Energy Star number and to the savings on energy. And of course, I'm going to love to see what the carbon reduction on providing 20,000 Energy Star homes. I'm sure that is very notable. I was wondering if you could just comment on the recent innovation that you took to the Berkshire Hathaway show. Would you mind telling us just a little bit on that?
Absolutely. And we've actually had a few more recent ones too that are exciting to discuss. So back in April, for the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting, we took and showcased our first net zero electricity home. And what's really neat about that project is we worked within this existing framework. It was actually a home model that we've been building for quite some time. So it's like we worked within this existing framework to add everything that we've learned about energy efficiency over the past several decades. So everything from Energy Star appliances, LED lights, flex windows with argon, we upgraded the insulation package, had a high efficiency furnace, and again, that EcoBeat. What we did was we dialed in that electricity consumption, and then we installed on the roof solar shingles. And those solar shingles were sized appropriately to account for, give or take, 100% of the home's electricity consumption throughout the year. So while we don't currently offer the installed solar systems, any homeowner interested could work with a local company in their area for any claim build. But beyond that, like I mentioned, we actually recently just built 3 zero energy homes in California. And so in addition to some of those features I just mentioned, think about including a heat pump water heater in those. Again, additional efficiency gains there. And we had an incredibly tight envelope. Bottom line, we're going to continue to innovate and make energy efficient homes more attainable for today's home buyers. And we ultimately believe that the demand for these affordable net zero type homes are only going to increase.
I agree. Well, thank you for sharing those innovations with us. So I'm going to switch now to Clemente and just ask him a few questions, and you can talk a little bit from the field. So Clemente and NPHS, you guys have had great success in leveraging manufactured housing, these homes in your communities, particularly in the Inland Empire of Southern California. Can you speak a little bit about your approach on energy efficiency and the homes that you're providing? Just tell us a little bit more of how that serves your community.
Sure. Thank you, Stacy, and want to thank Next Step for holding this very wonderful, impactful discussion. I always get excited because here at NPHS, we're always flying the plane while we're building it. So being alongside colleagues and hearing them speak about carbon offset and innovations, and it's always a good opportunity for us to keep learning from you folks. So so we started using factory built housing as a way of reducing development costs. We took this journey with, in fact, we took this journey with Next Step. So you guys have been a wonderful partner. Thank you so much. To really offset the cost of construction, because site build homes here in Southern California, and of course, this will resonate across other parts in the nation. It's just cost prohibitive, especially when you're developing one home at a time across the nation. So we have to look at other ways of building instead of using site built ways, looking at offsite construction. But the benefits of that, of course, is the manufactured housing provides a lot of flexibility and customization, especially the eco-friendliness of the construction, right? And we can integrate a lot of energy efficiency. So we began this journey looking at it with, we need to think about sustainable home ownership. So how can we use factory built technology to create more sustainable home ownership? And one of the ways is to really green these homes as much as possible to lower the utility costs for our families, which are LMI families of color. That's who primarily we serve. So we looked at it from a homeownership sustainability long-term perspective. But then as we started evolving into, okay, but what are we doing as we green building our homes, right? It's not just about putting more money, discretionary income into LMI families' pockets, right? Dollar earned is a dollar saved is a dollar earned. But how can we then expand on what we're doing? And we evolved from just this singular way of just creating more discretionary income and saving utility costs for our families to let's look at our climate adaptiveness and the climate resiliency that factory built technology can bring to the table. So we started with, drought tolerant landscaping, tankless water heaters, Energy Star appliances, and then we started taking this broad approach of how to mitigate climate change and create climate adaptive and resilient home ownership. We got into solar. All our homes are EV ready. We even build to wildfire and wildland urban specifications. So our homes are now more anti-ignition, so they don't catch fire as easily. And of course, Energy Star, right? And now we're excited about Energy Star next generation, all right, what that's going to bring in creating more energy efficiency. So, and by the way, I love William, Ecobee. So we love Ecobee and their quality of air sensors. So we're putting that into our next phase of homes. So that's our approach. It's now we landed from how do we save our families with utility costs to let's look at our using factory built technology to create a climate adaptive and resilient home ownership.
Just excellent. You've been a great partner there in California. So let me ask about maybe some of the notable benefits that the folks you're serving have realized through your homes. I know you've innovated in solar. You can talk a little bit about your solar installation company. Just let us know a little bit more. How is that for the family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we like to pop up social enterprises here at PHS. 8 years ago, we created a Sojourner Solar. It's a solar brokerage platform that really, when solar was very expensive here for the average LMI family, right? You were looking at a solar panel system 8 years ago, $30,000 easily, right? For now, it's gone down a lot. So I'd love to say that our platform disrupted pricing, but yeah, there was a policy environment in California that really brought down prices. But yeah, so we leverage that platform with our now new social enterprise, which is Homes by NPHS. So we are a retail manufactured housing retail dealer now, and so we're acting as a supply conduit to our communities to get more affordable quality units into our communities. And we'd love to say that homes to our communities, built by our communities, because we're using a local plant here in the Inland Empire. And give you an example, the first 3 manufactured homes that we built were in the city of Chino. 2 of the homes, these are 1,400 square foot homes. Those families have not had an electric bill for the last 6 years. In
wow.
California, by the way, in Rancho Cucamonga, electric is very, very expensive. The largest home, that's almost 1,600 square feet with a family of 6, they've had a 90% offset of their electric bill. So huge, huge, huge savings. It's a very large family, beautiful kids, by the way, in that household. But to give you an example of how just energy efficient, it adds up to the sustainability and also creating homes that are adapting and capitalizing on, in hotter summers, more sunlight, how can we just utilize that to create more discretionary income to our LMI families, especially our LMI families of color?
Fantastic. I can imagine this future where our low and moderate income families don't have electric bills. To replicate what you just said every single time, right? There's got to be a path toward it. So, and I want to make sure that you and William are connecting after we have this webinar today about what's going on in California. So we're going to switch now. We're going to talk about electrification just a little bit. So I want to ask Jamal this question. So we're very excited to have Rewiring America as part of today's discussion. We know electrification is certainly a buzzword in the energy efficiency space right now. I mean, you guys really convinced us about the benefits of electrification for a large project we are doing with development partners in Hagerstown, Maryland. We switched from gas to all electric. So help us better understand what this concept means. I know you convinced me, but I want you to convince this large audience we have today. Why is it an important approach for new and existing American housing stock?
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. It's a pleasure to be here. I will answer that. I want to put a framing around that question a little bit here, and thinking about the trajectory and progression of construction in our housing stock writ large. Over the course of history, we've had really key innovations that have helped us build better homes, more effective homes, more efficient homes. We used to, as people, we used to live in homes constructed primarily with wood and sticks and whatnot, but eventually we progressed and began to use bricks and other material. And within that context, their electrification is sort of the next iteration of progression of our building stock. What electrification is the process of shifting from a fossil fuel powered machine to an electric machine. And that concept exists both in the building sector, but also in other sectors too. Think about the electrification of vehicles, the growing popularity of electric vehicles. So electrification in that context, again, the next iteration of innovation. We talk a lot about innovation here, in our construction industry. When we do that, when we electrify, there's all types of benefits that can accrue. Rewiring America, we were founded on the premise that about 87% of our country's emissions come from the energy sector writ large, and almost half of those emissions and pollution comes from decisions that we as consumers can make. So that's how we're choosing to heat and cool our homes and water, what we're choosing to cook food on, how we're choosing to get from place to place. These are consumer decisions, right? Like I can go to, Home Depot and choose the heating system that I want to put in my home. These are decisions that you and I, that all of us can make to decide what we're doing with our homes. I think it's really important, again, within the context of innovation, that we're positioning electrification as because this is what it is. It's a more efficient way of doing things. When you think about the highly efficient electric versions of familiar technologies like heating systems. So we think about a furnace, hot water heaters, we think about boilers, stoves, we think about, typical gas stoves. The more efficient versions of those, heat pump water heaters, induction stoves, are, at a minimum, twice as efficient at doing what they're designed to do, and at most, 5 to 6 times more efficient at doing what they're designed to do. So, in that context, electrification, even though there are other benefits, at its core is just a more efficient way of achieving the goals that we set out for these appliances. Doing more with less, one can say. So not only are we becoming in maximizing efficiency, but we're also reducing pollution. We're making homes healthier for people, particularly those who may have pre-existing health issues, pre-existing health and respiratory issues. And we talk about cost savings. 87% of Americans are poised to save money today by switching to a more efficient appliance. And the rest of the 13%, there are policies that we can put into place to help those households also save money by electrifying. So that's a very long-winded way of saying electrification at its core, switching from fossil fuel to electric, and doing it in a way that is achieving more with less.
Okay, well, I think that's a great explanation, Jamal. When I think about this, from a homeowner's perspective, I've had a few of my lady friends say, well, I love to cook. I want my gas range, right? Of course, I'm a cook. But, I think this journey has taken us to understand how efficient, like induction cooking, these changes that we're looking to make, and chefs are using those, right? So I think it's a mind shift for a lot of Americans and consumers as we move to this. So we're going to have to do a lot more education. So as cars electrify, as homes electrify, the increased demand, so we may need more energy types to generate that electricity, right? So maybe we can, it's a first step also to getting to greener solutions, right? So thank you. So next question, we're going to shift just a little bit. We're going to talk to Ellie about the Inflation Reduction Act that was recently signed into law and what that represents. Well, maybe the largest investment in energy security and combating climate change in US history. So it's pretty major, right? And RMI has taken an initial look at how some of the provisions of this law could potentially benefit producers of manufactured homes and home buyers. So Ellie, I know you've looked at this. Can you speak a little bit to those initial findings?
Absolutely. And I will also note RMI has a live document public to folks, which I can share as well, that also kind of touches on IRA and what that means for the broader industry. But absolutely, you know, when we're thinking about IRA and the Inflation Reduction Act and how that can really benefit both producers and homeowners living in manufactured homes, we first and foremost, I think the new energy efficient home tax credit, which is 45L, that specifically could be leveraged by manufacturers. It can be stacked with a low income housing tax credit without reducing the basis. It's also available to both new and major renovations and can really add up in terms of the cost savings here. So we're looking at $2,500 for homes meeting EPA's Energy Star requirements and around $5,000 for homes meeting DOE's Zero Energy Ready homes. In terms of tax credits, I'll also note 25C, the residential energy efficiency tax credit, is a great one for homeowners. You know, this is a revision to an existing tax credit with an extension and really can support you know, smaller home upgrades or heat pump upgrades within a home. Specifically, eligible individuals can receive up to $1,200 a year per these upgrades, with the exception of heat pumps and heat pump water heaters can go up to $2,000. And then finally, I'll just note the high efficiency electric home rebates, which is really kind of flowing through the state energy offices, and it's being led by the Department of Energy at this point in time. And again, it's going to flow through the state energy offices, but also tribal communities as well. Really can be leveraged too, and that's going to see roughly $4.5 billion through 2031, rolled out on an income basis, but that can really support, you know, new construction and also retrofit projects. So lots of money flowing. I will say though, you know, we're still waiting to hear on official guidance from these federal agencies on what this really means and how, you know, all of this money will be disseminated across the industry. So do stay tuned for that. I also do want to quickly mention kind of a side note from IRA. I do have colleagues at RMI that are working on our Advanced Building Construction Collaborative, also known as ABC Collaborative, and that really sits at the intersection of construction, manufacturing, climate, and we're aiming to solve some of our nation's most pressing issues. The collaborative currently is comprised of 87 members on both the supply and demand sides of the construction market, and also we work to facilitate a lot of conversations between major actors across the market. I will note, you know, a lot of our members are already using these innovative technologies and solutions within their portfolios and really starting to rethink the construction standards writ large. So very high level, I just wanted to give a shameless plug to that. And I know that my colleagues working on our ABC collaborative are also very heavily involved in IRA and what this means for manufactured housing as well.
Well, thank you, Ellie. I think that gives us an idea about some of the programs, the tax credits. Congratulations on that collaborative and the work that you're doing. We appreciate RMI's commitment and thought leadership on that. So let's stay with IRA just for a few seconds here. So Jamal, I'm going to ask this question to you. Where does Rewiring America see the highest potential impact on housing using IRA? And what could this mean for affordable housing developers?
Yeah, I think I have a couple answers to that. I think first and foremost, for Rewiring America, our perspective is often from the consumer perspective. Like consumers, we have choices that we can make, and the IRA is making it easier to do that, and more effective and more affordable to do that by providing consumer-based incentives. So think about the electrification rebates, the whole home efficiency rebates, as well as the 25C tax credit for heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, insulation, weatherization, electrical panel upgrades, and the 25D tax credit for geothermal energy, for battery storage, and for solar. What those consumer tax credits do, and so the impact that those can have, is showing and demonstrating the increased demand for more efficient and more effective technologies. A lot of times, or actually up until this point, a lot of the resources available to improve the quality of existing housing stock largely have been through, government or semi-governmental programs that have to be re-upped, every so often.
Mhm.
And those programs are very effective, but are not sustainable in building the type of market and demand that we need to sustain the workforce also that we need to do this work. So with consumer incentives, you can think of it as a built-in customer base that contractors can leverage in order to build their businesses and help usher the entire U.S. building stock into the next iteration of innovation that I talked about before. That's the sort of the first point. The second is, because of the IRA, we think of households across the country now having an electric bank account, a bank account that they can use to help transition their own homes into this new zero emission, no polluting future that I think that I'm hoping for, and I imagine the rest of you are hoping for as well. This bank account comprises of those consumer incentives, but also of other incentives that also can go to consumers. So thinking about the $27 billion available for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is in essence a fund to help reduce emissions. There's a lot of nuance to that I won't go into right now. But our analysis found that like the average Inflation Reduction Act beneficiary can get up to $10,600 in their electric bank accounts to make energy saving, life-changing decisions with their appliances and machines. In terms of affordable housing, I'll just echo what Ellie mentioned. The 45L tax credit is huge in helping to steer and incentivize the increased efficiency of the affordable housing that we're developing. Pointing to the Energy Star specification that applies to that helps, that where the $2,500 incentive is attached to, but then the zero energy ready homes standard, it's a mouthful, that is tied to a $5,000 credit. I want to just underscore what Ellie mentioned previously. Developers utilizing the low-income housing tax credit could not use this 45L tax credit without ultimately like reducing the amount of money that they can ultimately leverage in order to create and construct affordable housing. Now they can do that, which means not only are we improving the number of affordable housing units that we have in our country, but we're also doing that at a higher standard, a more efficient standard, a more effective standard, and a standard that will be energy burden reducing. So I just want to really underscore the importance of that and the impact that will have in the affordable housing development market for years to come.
Thank you, Jamal, and thanks for explaining that. So today I learned something about the tax credits and how that's not going to conflict, I guess, with their bases, and how there's just going to be more incentive to do the right thing as we build homes, right? Make them more energy efficient. So I'm going to switch over to William next. Got a question for you. Next Step has made a decision, a very intentional decision, to move towards zero energy within 5 years on all our projects. And I would say each year we're looking at it as next step up. Like, this is going to be a spectrum, us moving over 5 years to get there. Okay. We know you shared some of the work that you have done, some of your innovations. And I was just wondering if you might touch on that a little bit more. And what in these innovations do you feel have broader market appeal and adoption potential? Also, with take into consideration what Ellie and Jamal have been saying with all the new incentives. We just learned about a bank account. These home buyers, in effect, could have up to $10,600 in their bank account to spend on some of these new innovations. If you were going to leverage that bank account, what would you take to the market?
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. So, triple underscore here, I guess, on the IRA. It's really exciting to think about the opportunities, specifically the new opportunities that it poses for our business on the zero energy side. As I mentioned, we're kind of exploring opportunities there, and we are starting to build a few of those homes to better understand, to your point, some of those innovative technologies. So, for us, it will kind of come back down to those core components that build the envelope of the house, insulation, windows. If we think about kind of the envelope itself being tight, right? There's new technologies that are coming out that are actually sealing air better. And the interesting thing is that's actually something where our industry has historically really had some success, right? When it comes to offsite built housing, having a very high performing envelope relative to site built housing. So, many interesting innovations there. To that point, it's going to be the systems as well. So we spoke a little bit about heat pump water heaters as a new opportunity to drive home efficiencies. It's exciting to see some of the new tech that's emerging out. And when we pair that with the incentives that are now offered through the IRA, it's you can't help but get excited about all the opportunity ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's great too that Clayton just tested these 3 near zero energy ready homes in California. Next Step is partnering with the Systems Building Research Alliance to do 3 more next year, which I'm sure we'll be working with Clayton there, and we're going to be working with Clemente in California on one. And we heard, from Ellie and Jamal that the future looks like this $5,000 tax credit for producers to move to that. So, today we're doing the innovations, we're learning, right? But we can see the scale potential as the system changes, where the incentives really align with our goals. So got a question for Clemente. It's going to be our last question here before we take questions from the audience. So please share your questions in the chat function, and we're going to have a curated question and answer session that'll begin after Clemente talks. So Clemente, my question here is, we're kind of staying with this thread on zero energy. I know you've been working on a new phase of manufactured housing work that includes a pilot for a zero energy home. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your project? And I'm really referring to the project that you just recently won that nice award from JP Morgan Chase for the next 3 years. Just talk a little bit about what you have in store for the next 3 years in Southern California.
Okay, so the project that you're referring to is our Gateway factory built demonstration project, which includes a factory built home, single family home that's going to be almost 1,600 square feet with an 800 square foot ADU on the back that's going to sit on a community land trust as well. So it's about creation of affordable homeownership, but also preserving that affordability as well on a community land trust. So we're going to not only be testing some energy stuff, which I'll mention very briefly, but also, there's a lot of complexities here in the mortgage financing, because you're talking about factory built ADU on a 99-year ground lease. So Fannie and Freddie better be ready. And thanks to our partnership with Next Step, right, where we're going to be ready. But yeah, we're using that project to mainstream everything that we're doing around, our climate resiliency and adaptive features. So all of our homes moving forward will be factory built homes. Will be solar ready, EV ready, tankless water heaters. We'll try to make them as smart as possible, Ecobee and air quality sensors, all drought tolerant landscaping, and build to WUI specifications. Here in our area, fires, strong winds, and increasingly hot summers are taking a toll on our housing stock. So that's where the climate change resiliency stuff comes in. So moving forward, we're integrating all those features to our next phase of homes, and we're going to try to integrate as many other innovations. So we're throwing everything in there to push the envelope and make factory built homes, net zero homes, mainstream. And again, thank you for your partnership. Next step.
Okay.
Hope I answered
Wonderful.
the question.
Perfect. So as questions come in, I'm going to have a question for each of the panelists as we move into this. And I'll start by answering the first question. So the question is, what does the future of manufactured housing look like in America, right? So I heard today the future could be that low and moderate income homeowners don't have a utility bill. So, think in terms of aspirational, optimistic, what could the future be? And so, Ellie, I'm going to ask you, what do you think that future looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what was mentioned before. In a hopeful, optimistic point of view that I try to carry with me, I definitely see manufactured homes, being all electric in the future. And similar to what Clemente is mentioning, the work that they're all doing, I think that having solar and high efficiency performing appliances within the home is going to be really, really important. Air sealing, tight envelope, etc. That is really where I see the future headed. But I think, again, it's going to take a lot of action from the industry, and we all need to kind of put our hands together and be willing to drive the car and make sure that we can see success down the line.
Thanks, Ellie. Good point. It's all of us working together on this. So Jamal, what do you think our future looks like in providing new homeownership opportunities? And and you can also chime in what you think about building homes in factories versus on site and those efficiencies. What do you think this future looks like?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the future is electric, and I need to lay that baseline. I think it's important when thinking about the future of our housing stock and of our energy sector, that we understand that when we are shifting to like efficient electric appliances, we've already talked about a lot of those benefits, but I noting a question or the comment in the Q&A by Lisa about electricity in North Dakota, being generated largely by coal. Well, when we are shifting to electric appliances, we're opening the door for more sources of energy. We're opening the door for solar, for hydropower, for batteries, and those sources of energy aren't possible when we're heating or when we're utilizing fossil fuel powered appliances. So in this new future that hopefully and I believe will come to pass, we are using efficient electric appliances that are powered by renewable energy sources that do not pollute, and that help to build resilience in communities across the country.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thank you for answering that question in the Q&A. So William, coming from the country's largest manufacturer, what do you think the future looks like for manufactured housing in this country?
Yeah, well, I'll echo a lot of the technology conversations that we've had to this point. Undeniably, some of the things that we've discussed with the envelope and electrification and improving the overall performance. Clemente, you mentioned the potential of solar-ready homes as well, right? But I would argue that, in the interim, it's more than just technology, right? Affordable housing is going to continue to be a critical need for millions of families and individuals across the country. The offsite built housing offers a path to making energy efficient homes attainable for more people, right? Helping homeowners save money on utilities while also conserving resources. And that conserving resources kind of ties back to our vision on sustainability when it comes to reducing waste, right? That's a big part of it. It's also critical that we work to increase access to high quality, energy efficient and sustainable offsite built housing. And some of that comes by removing barriers, right? There are still some barriers in the form of zoning and stigma. So on the zoning front, the industry is working closely with municipalities across the country to educate community leaders, zoning officials, and the public to allow offsite built housing in more locations. But at the same time, making manufactured housing more available to Americans is unfortunately impacted by NIMBYism and outdated misperceptions about manufactured housing more broadly. So we know that education is critical for helping the general public and government leaders to understand the facts about manufactured housing. Bottom line, the industry can and will keep innovating to meet the needs of today's homeowners with an eye towards quality, affordability, and sustainability.
Yeah. Thank you, William. And what I love about manufactured housing being part of the solution, it is the right sized home and a greener way to build, right? And if we keep building these mega mansions, well, great, you're putting all this energy efficiency, but if you have a huge space to heat, right? So it's a great approach here. So Clemente, we're looking for your inspiration here as what the future looks like.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm inspired with what everybody just said. So ditto to everything. But it's about options, right? It's about not just choosing where we want to live and work, but choosing how we want our homes to be built. Manufactured technology, manufactured housing shouldn't even be a thought. It should be just another great option of the way we build homes, without the negative stigmas, without the questions, without appraisal issues, without mortgage financing options. So I'm looking towards a future where offsite and onsite construction just are working together to create more options, equitable pathways to homeownership for families, especially families of color. Options. I think factory build just brings another incredible option for families to create intergenerational wealth. And there shouldn't be a difference between offsite and offsite of construction.
Okay. Thank you, Clemente. So thank you, panelists, for taking my questions. Now we're going to see if we can take a few questions from the audience. So I'm going to turn this over to Grant.
Sure thing. Thank you, Stacy. And so I would encourage folks that are still in attendance, if you have any more questions, please do feel free. We have a few more minutes here to go ahead and type them into the Q&A function on the webinar. We do have one question here, and of course, I apologize in advance for butchering anybody's last name as I go through these. From Mark Derringer. We're a nonprofit builder in Louisville, Kentucky. We're looking to build affordable homes for first-time homeowners, trying to build an inexpensive home to operate in urban areas of our city. The lots are typically 25 by 75, and that's our difficulty. Any suggestions for floor plans for 2 to 3 bedroom homes? Stacy, as I know that you're very well familiar with Louisville, feel free to weigh in here. Or Clemente, of course, having had experience working with manufactured housing, looking in infill in urban areas. Any thoughts, suggestions, or advice for individuals or organizations looking to embark on this journey?
Well, first I would say we should have coffee because I'm in Louisville and we can talk more. I think generally, first of all, the city of Louisville has been very supportive of homes built in factories. That's the first thing I would want you to know, and even manufactured housing. Okay. So we're impressed with that. Now, I know that we have a lot of narrow, skinny, long lots that would require a home that would be long. And in Louisville, we have a lot of what we call shotgun homes. They're the homes that you often see like in New Orleans, very skinny, long homes. A lot of our worker housing now very popular with a lot of people to renovate. So we have these lots. The industry has a home that resembles that footprint, if you will. And they have also high quality standards. There's a standard called cross mod, and it's much the same way that Next Step has always required higher quality standards. And they recently innovated and took one of these narrow homes to the market show, and it's going to be available. So that's where I would start looking at some of those plans. Of course, and then we would recommend, and Next Step requires that they be Energy Star. And I think that would be very well received in Louisville. So let's just connect after the webinar and we'll get you some more information.
Okay.
Grant?
Does anybody else have anything to add to that question? If not, I don't see any more questions in the Q&A function at this time. So last call for any of those last minute. And if not, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Stacy to wind us down for the afternoon.
Okay, well, it's great timing. So first of all, let me thank the audience who attended today. I know that we all care about increasing energy efficiency and long-term affordability for low and moderate income home buyers. I think the panelists has done a wonderful job. You can give them your claps through Zoom. And I think they've shared a lot of opportunities, new programs, new tax credits, new innovations, and a glimpse into the future as the policy will shift now that we have this new law in effect. It's going to take a while, I know, for it to get moving, but we've heard that there are incentives now for home buyers to help make that shift. And there's incentives for manufacturers and producers to provide Energy Star and new zero energy homes. So congratulations to our panelists who shared this information. I know that the nonprofits like Rewiring America and RMI have been just dedicated, tireless advocates to get this law to a point that it was passed. I know you've been supportive of these programs. So thank you for that and all the advocacy work you've done. Clemente and his organization, congratulations on really making this work for communities of color, to do it in a way that's sustainable, equitable, and fair for home buyers. And then William, thank you as our industry leader for putting out a vision of what it would take to begin to move this industry toward a zero energy future by your initial demonstrations that are so important that you just completed in California and the work that we'll all do together. I think Ellie summed it up when she said, you know, we've got all these new programs, tax credits, and a new way. We just need to get together with industry, hold each other, and move together in this. So that's what I hope we aspire to. I know we aspire to do it. We just need to take, no pun intended, the next step. So thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar series.